You know when a day starts out wrong? That was me, standing at my window, cup of burnt coffee in hand, watching the neighbor across the street drag his trash can to the curb. Something about the way he moved made my stomach clench. I couldn't even say what, he just looked off, like he was trying to remember how legs worked. And this was all before I even put on pants. Our neighborhood is the kind of place where the lawns are neat, the mailboxes match, and people nod at each other but don't really talk. Everyone pretends to be friendly, but no one's ever really there for you. Not for real. I guess I liked it that way. Until last week. Until the weirdness started leaking in. My name's Nick. I'm 32, single. I rent the bottom half of a split level in a suburb outside Cleveland. The only thing that really connects me to my neighbors is the fact that our houses look exactly the same. I work from home doing tech support. I eat microwave meals and doom scroll Reddit. I have a cat named Cheese. Last Thursday, I noticed the first thing. The silence. Usually I wake up to the sound of kids screaming on their way to the bus, or the old guy next door mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. just to spite everyone. But that morning, nothing. It was like the neighborhood had gone on mute. I actually checked my phone to see if my hearing was broken. That's when I noticed the military van parked at the end of the block. I'm not saying it's crazy to see a government vehicle around here. We get the occasional squad car, mostly for break-ins or because the Anderson kid threw a rock through someone's window. But this van wasn't moving. It just sat there, engine off, all the windows dark. The driver didn't get out. It gave me the creeps. At 9:04 IEM, I got an alert on my phone. Something about an emergency response exercise. Nothing to worry about, stay inside, keep calm. Typical. I shrugged it off until I took my trash out and saw a streak of something dark, almost black, running down the curb. Blood. Or oil. I stood there way too long, staring, trying to decide if I should take a picture or just go back inside and pretend it wasn't real. By lunchtime, people were coughing, not a normal cough, like hacking, retching. I heard it through the walls. Even Cheese stopped napping and went to hide behind the couch. When I looked out the window again, the same neighbor from earlier was standing in his driveway, staring at his own house. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. I decided not to wave. I called my buddy Tyler. He lives in the next town over. He didn't answer. The line buzzed and then went dead. I texted him, "Hey, you seeing this weird stuff?" Nothing. I texted my mom. Same. My phone started acting up too, apps crashing, messages unsent. For a second, I wondered if this was one of those viral prank things, like the time people dressed up as clowns and chased joggers in 2016, but nobody was laughing. That night, I went to bed late. Every few minutes, a siren would whine in the distance and then cut off. It sounded like someone was flipping a switch just to mess with us. I lay there in the dark, Cheese pressed up against my side, and tried not to think about the way the neighbor's silhouette still stood in the driveway. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed about hands banging on glass. I woke up to the real sound of something tapping at my kitchen window. It was almost funny how fast normal life unraveled. On Friday, I woke up to no Wi-Fi and my phone stuck at no service. News was all over the place. One channel said the CDC had everything under control. Another showed shaky footage of crowds pushing against barricades. Nobody agreed on anything. I tried to call Tyler again, but my phone wouldn't even dial. For the first time, I wondered if this was bigger than our town. I wondered if the military van was there to keep us safe or to keep us in. Around noon, I decided to do something. I'd been living in pajamas, pretending things were fine, but my gut said to trust no one. I started checking my windows, locking them. I found an old baseball bat in the closet and put it by the door. It made me feel stupid but less helpless. I filled my bathtub with water just in case. Cheese watched me the whole time, tail flicking like he knew something I didn't. From time to time, I looked at him through the window, a backdrop of puzzlement as he sat there, watching me. By evening, there were more of them, neighbors wandering outside, moving slow, looking confused, like they'd just woken up from a bad dream. But their eyes weren't right. My landlord, Mrs. Connolly, came by to ask if I had any candles, and I lied and said no. She lingered at my door too long, asking questions that felt a little too personal. When she left, I slid the deadbolt and pushed the couch against the door. I spent the rest of the night in my living room with cheese, scrolling through half-loaded Reddit threads about contaminated water and strange behavior in suburbs. No one had answers. Everyone was scared. I kept the lights off and the curtains shut. I could hear people moving outside, but I didn't dare look. That's when I realized, it's not the zombies you need to worry about, it's the people next door. The ones you always thought were normal until you saw them in the right light. The moment you actually see it up close, everything changes. I used to think about apocalypse scenarios like a game, something you talk about after too many beers. But when it's right there, when you're looking into the eyes of someone you used to trust, and all you see is hunger, you stop thinking and you start surviving. I woke up with the feeling that something was really, really wrong. It wasn't just the silence, though that was still there, heavier than ever. It was a smell, sweet and rotten, like meat left out in the sun. I'd slept with the couch pressed against the door and cheese curled up on my chest, but it didn't feel safe anymore. I listened for a full minute before I dared to move. All I could hear was my own heart pounding in my ears, and something faint, scraping maybe, or the sound of nails on wood. I stood up, baseball bat in hand, and crept to the window. There were more people in the street now. They moved in weird, jerky ways, like puppets with tangled strings. One of them, Mrs. Connolly, was at the curb, knees dark with blood, hands pawing at something I couldn't see. Mr. Blevins was still standing in his yard, but his robe was gone, replaced by a torn t-shirt and boxer shorts. He was barefoot. His skin looked almost gray in the early light. I scanned for the military van, still there, but this time the driver's door was open, no sign of the driver. The air was thick with tension, the kind that made me want to crawl back into bed and pretend this was just another fever dream. Heard a noise behind me. The sound of a door handle, slow, deliberate. I spun, bat raised. Someone was at my back door, the one that leads out to the little patio, the one I never bothered to lock because it faces the yard. My breath caught in my throat. I moved slow, trying not to make a sound, feeling every creak in the floorboards. The knob twisted, then stopped. Something heavy thumped against the door. Once, then again. Cheese hissed, puffed up like a Halloween cat, and shot under the bed. I whispered her name, but she was gone. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But you have to know what you're up against, so I pulled aside the curtain a crack, just enough to see. It was Tyler, my friend. Pale, glassy-eyed, shirt soaked with blood, mouth working silently like he was chewing on invisible food. His hands were raw, skin shredded. He was trying to get in, but not with words. He slammed his shoulder against the glass, again and again, eyes fixed on me. I wanted to cry, to run, to open the door and help him. But I didn't. Instead, I slid the lock in place, even though it probably wouldn't matter. I pressed my back to the wall and tried not to throw up. My best friend was gone. He wasn't Tyler anymore. He was one of them. Then came the screams, not the usual neighborhood noises, real, guttural, animal screams from a few houses down. Someone else finally saw it too, I guess. I heard glass shattering, more thumping, a car engine revving and then cutting out. People started running, pushing, clawing at doors, begging to be let in. I heard someone, maybe Mrs. Conley, pounding on my front door. screaming my name. "Nick, Nick, let me in, please." I couldn't. I wanted to, but I couldn't. She was part of it now, or about to be. I crouched in my living room, gripping the bat, wishing it was a gun, wishing I was a braver man or a meaner one. I heard footsteps on my roof. Maybe a raccoon, maybe not. Cheese was still gone. I felt completely alone. The noise kept building outside, chaos spreading from house to house. I caught flashes of movement between the cracks in my blinds, neighbors bashing in windows, people running into the street only to get tackled, bitten, torn apart by what looked like their own friends. The military van finally did something. Someone inside started firing. The gunshots sounded so much louder than they should have. It only made things worse. The infected scattered, then regrouped. I saw the soldier dragged from the van, his helmet rolling into a storm drain. Then I saw what they did to him. I ran, not out into the street. I wasn't that stupid, but deeper into the house, into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. I pulled Cheese into my arms when she finally came out from under the sink, her heart pounding like a drum against my chest. We huddled together on the cold tile, listening to the world collapse just a few feet away. It felt like hours passed in there. I tried not to cry, but a few tears slipped out anyway. By the time I dared to open the door, everything was quiet again. But the quiet didn't feel safe anymore. It felt like a warning. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with food, water, batteries, anything I thought might help. I didn't have a real plan. I just knew I couldn't stay here. Not with them out there. Not with Tyler pounding on my back door, his eyes empty, his hands bloody. I looked around my house one last time. Every memory felt small, unimportant. The world I knew was gone. All I could do was try to survive the new one. They say you can tell who someone really is when everything falls apart. I always thought I'd be one of the good guys, the type who helps people, even when it's risky. But when it's your life or theirs, you find out quick how much of that is just something you tell yourself to feel better. I left my house in the gray light of early morning. I didn't bother locking the door. There was nothing left inside worth saving. My backpack was heavier than I expected, even though I'd only packed what I needed. Bottled water, a few cans of soup, some batteries, my phone, and Cheese in her carrier. The baseball bat felt slippery in my hands. My chest ached with every breath, but I pushed forward. The street looked like a war zone. Cars smashed into light poles, blood splattered on sidewalks, shoes and backpacks scattered everywhere. I tried not to look at the shapes slumped against doorways or the hands pressed flat against cracked glass. Most of the infected had drifted away, following the noise of last night's gunshots, but a few still wandered, heads bobbing, teeth clicking. I ducked behind parked cars, heart in my throat, every step a gamble. I made it to the end of the block thinking maybe I'd try for the highway, maybe find help. That's when I saw someone. Real, alive, not sick. A woman I recognized from down the street. She was crying, covered in blood that wasn't hers, waving me over with a wild look in her eyes. My first instinct was to help, to reach out, but I hesitated. The last time I opened my door, someone tried to drag me outside. My fingers tightened on the bat. I told her to stay back, tried to ask if she was bitten. She started begging. Just let her come with me, just for a little while. I wanted to say yes. I really did. But I saw her sleeve torn, a jagged bite on her arm. I stepped away. She fell to her knees and screamed after me. I kept walking, not looking back. I found an old storm shelter behind the school, propped the door open with a brick and squeezed inside with Cheese. I locked us in, heart still hammering. Inside it smelled like mold and dust. There were some old cots, broken crates, empty water bottles. I sat down and tried to catch my breath. For a second, It almost felt safe, until I heard pounding on the metal door, low and slow, like someone trying to remember what hands were for. I sat there, holding cheese, breathing as quietly as I could, until the noise faded. I wondered how long before someone tried to break in, or worse, before I did something I couldn't take back. That night, I watched from the tiny window as flames lit up the sky. Someone's house, maybe mine, was burning. I could hear shouting, begging, people trying to escape. I pressed my face to the glass and saw a small group running from one yard to the next, dragging children and bags of food, one guy swinging a crowbar at anything that moved. I saw a man begging not to be left behind. They left him anyway. I waited until it got quiet, then cracked open the door. The air stank of smoke and fear. I ran. I don't know where I was going, just away from the fire, away from the screams. I ran until my legs gave out. Then I crawled into the bushes and sobbed, holding cheese like she was the last real thing in the world. When I finally stood, it was almost dawn. The world looked empty and cold, streets littered with debris and broken glass. I knew the rules had changed. There were no more neighbors, no more friends, just survivors and the things that used to be people. I started walking, not because I had hope, but because standing still meant dying. Each step I took, I felt myself change. Harder, colder. Not the person I was when this all started. But I wasn't dead. Not yet. And as long as I kept moving, maybe I'd find someone I could trust. Or maybe I'd just learn to live with the truth. In this world, trust is just another way to get yourself killed.